Welcome to Industry Insiders, created and produced by the Center for Entertainment and Hospitality Management at California State University, Fullerton. During this series, we sit down with influential professionals in the entertainment and hospitality industries that are located across the world. Our goal is to learn about each professional's career and gain wisdom from their experience in the industry. This week's guest is Bo Patel. Bo is currently the Chief Portfolio Officer at T2 Hospitality. Bo is a CSUF accounting alumnus and an active EHM Advisory Board member. In his current role, Bo is involved in all aspects of pre- and post-acquisition activities, financial analysis, site visits, and asset management. His primary responsibility is to oversee their operating hotels and strategically partner with a third-party management company. Please join us as we welcome Bo Patel.
Welcome to Bo Patel. Welcome to Industry Insider.
Great to be here.
We are happy to have you here. Today, my co-host is Jocelyn Berrios. I pronounced that right, Jocelyn, right?
Yeah.
All right. Introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, my name is Jocelyn. I'm a Cal State Fullerton student. I'm a senior currently, and I am glad I'm here.
We're happy you're here as well, too. Also, a new member of our Student Advisory Board, so congratulations. Bo, our first question for you is, once you finished graduating from Cal State Fullerton just a few years ago, tell us about the first job you had after graduating.
Well, last year after graduating, no, just kidding. Many moons ago, my first job after graduating was at Glendale Federal Bank. If many of, Justin, you're way too young, they're not around anymore, but it was a bank in the Orange County, kind of the LA vicinity area, and I was a teller. Was my first job graduating.
All right, so you're a bank teller.
Bank teller.
Tell us, how did you make the transition from kind of the financial, because your major was accounting, so the financial industry, to working in hospitality? When did that switch occur?
So soon after my teller position, which lasted about a year and a half, I got a job with a manufacturing organization down in LA, garment manufacturing. And then through community connections, there's a family office here in Orange County that was in the hospitality industry, and I was introduced to them through a community event. And in our kind of in the Indian community, hotels were, kind of synonymous with, like it was the line everyone, Patel motel kind of deal. But for some odd reason, I did not have the hotel bug, and was introduced to folks that did. And once I transitioned over, as many say in hospitality, either the bug bites you or it spits you out, and it bit me, and I kind of stayed in forever.
Wonderful. Now, during this interview, Jocelyn and I will go back and forth, so I'll throw it over to Jocelyn for your first question.
Okay, so what do you enjoy most about working in your field?
I think the thing that draws me the most to it is just the diversity of the people that are in the industry, because you're dealing with folks kind of on the front desk, front of the house area, as well as folks behind the scenes. So you kind of get the feel of, the widget being made kind of right from the ground up. So that interaction and just the people component for me has always been the most exciting.
To kind of continue with Jocelyn's question, from the people that you observed in your years of working in hospitality, what are some of the most common characteristics of the most successful hospitality professionals you've seen?
So I think, words or descriptions that come to mind, I think, as everyone knows in our industry, the folks that never get enough credit, they're actually doing all the work of the housekeepers. And if there was a word to kind of describe them, it's just the work ethic is just unbelievable. And their pride in cleaning and making that room feel so special. When we all check into a hotel room, we forget who actually prepared that for when we walk in. You're kind of like wowed. Those are the folks you don't get to see often, but those are the ones that I kind of described as, like I said, the hard work and the work ethic. And then you have, other words that come to mind is just vertically flexible folks, people who can do multiple things, whether it's checking in a guest all the way to, having to clean up after a guest has left, probably traits that I would kind of come across.
Yeah, definitely. And then I also wanted to know, after those characteristics that you mentioned, if you could summarize what you do currently in your current role for us, and that'll lead us to some other avenues of questions.
So my current role, it's really overseeing the portfolio. So a little different from kind of my previous roles where I was more involved in day-to-day running of the different hotels, where now I'm looking at more results versus actions and results and managing those. So now it's really managing results and being one removed from day-to-day. Some of the things are still very similar and inspiring the folks that are making things happen at the property level. The other is just being super analytical and seeing if there's other opportunities or other ways to do things, either whether it's more efficiently, more profitable, just different avenues, different paths to kind of get to different results.
Wonderful. And when you say results, what specific metrics are you really focused on looking at on a consistent basis?
Sure. So in our industry, kind of the big thing is RevPAR, which is revenue per available room. So that is probably kind of the measurement, not probably, is the measurement that sees how the hotel is doing. So tracking that RevPAR against our competition, and many of folks who are in the hospitality school would understand, there's a thing called a star report where we kind of see how we're doing against our competition. So really analyzing, one, are we staying ahead of the competition, with the competition, and what can we do to either preserve that or advance that to a better ranking? And then the other part of the business is really what we call managing middle of the page. So it's all the expenses that take place before you get down to net profit. And there's metrics and key performance indicators that we internally look at to see if those are being met. And if they're not, the management company will share with us why or why not, and do we have to look at things differently. So I think those are the times when those metrics are not being met. We've got to put on our creative hats and kind of figure out how 1 + 1 can equal 3 again.
Absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned RevPAR. In the beginning portion of my class I teach, BU 8360, we go through RevPAR, we go through RevPAR index, we go through occupancy index. They map out a group booking to see how well the hotel did in terms of their RevPAR for the week compared to competition. So I try to tell, we have a star report. They have to analyze the star report on like the first test and the final exam. So we go through it all. So I'm so glad you mentioned that. We didn't set that up, everyone, just so people know that was not set up, so, and they come out being able to analyze the star report, knowing which day of the week they did better than the competition, how much they grew, week over week, month over month. So that's a really applicable skill that you just talked about. If you are watching out there and have questions, feel free to leave us a comment. Dr. Kim, she's teaching right now at summer school, but she still had time to leave me some questions. So she wants to know, how did you end up in hospitality with an accounting degree? And what do you enjoy about being in the industry, especially in the development side?
Great question. So if I was to kind of, relate the hospitality industry, the beauty about the industry, it has many different you could have many different skill sets within the industry, right? So from sales to operations to straight out management and then accounting. The money has to be counted. The entries have to be made into the ledger. So it kind of sounds really simple. So what drew me to it was when I was transitioning from manufacturing over to hospitality, the night audit function, which takes place every night, is when you kind of recap the day's business. And then you post it onto a ledger, or back when I started, it was kind of this, makeshift Excel spreadsheet. That whole thing has advanced and become automated over time. But that's where you got to apply your accounting of balancing the day's income to what was left to collect and so forth. So that was my first direct application for applying my accounting degree to the day's business. And then kind of at the corporate level, it was rolling up all of those numbers for the different assets and then providing more financial reporting and statements for analysis. So the accounting part of it was obviously making sure, double checking the numbers coming up, recapping them, and then presenting it for kind of passing it on to the finance folks.
Nice. I always say that night audit is the loneliest shift in the hotel, but it's also the shift you can get the most work done because there's hardly anyone around.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Jocelyn, what else do you have for us today?
Okay, what advice would you give to students who want to go into or pursue the hospitality industry?
Good question. I would say, the advice I'd give is have a completely open mind from a standpoint of, if you have a marketing degree and you're going into hospitality, don't kind of narrow yourself into just the marketing component of hospitality. The beauty of hospitality is, depending on whether you're at a corporate office in a hospitality business or down at the property level, I would always advise people start at the property level. You will get exposed to so many different things that take place down there. And believe it or not, you may find a passion or a calling that might not be what you studied for. So always have an open mind would be my advice. And you will have enough exposure to really say, hey, is this really what I want to do? Or is there something else that kind of excites me even more? And the skills are very applicable. So it's not like, oh my God, I had a marketing degree or an accounting degree, and now I have to go back to school and reinvent myself. The industry does not kind of silo those, which is a great opportunity for everyone.
To continue with that question, with students who are, entering their graduating years now, currently, or have just graduated, what advice would you give them as they're coming into an industry where we're in the middle of COVID, there's lots of downsizing and furloughs, but many students are still interested in working in the industry. What advice would you share with them?
It's obviously unprecedented times, right? So if the opportunities were available, and they still are quite a few opportunities available, it's just the flexibility of what your schedule will allow that to be. So the hours may not be consistent. They not be kind of exactly what you need. So some of that is really driven around your own flexibility, as well as just kind of continuing to scour and see what's available. The flip side of that, I will say, in the industry where there is still opportunity and you could work from home, is the whole social media marketing side that I mentioned, the e-commerce world. Those are areas that you don't have to be in the hotels. You could still do your work remotely. So look for postings or opportunity in those fields. It's a field that folks don't realize. It's very connected to the hospitality world, and there's opportunities in that area.
What have you witnessed inside of some of your properties in terms of changes they've made to how they do business now that we have social distancing and other specifications from the CDC?
I think the hardest thing for our industry has been where it's such a engaged transaction, right? Humans and just the customer service component is so critical. So where I think what I've been most grateful or thankful is the customers that are coming to the hotels actually have a completely open mind of how it has changed, and we don't have to fight the awkwardness of the change. Hence the front desk now having to wear a mask, not as many staff people available, so you may have to wait. The restaurant component has been shut down. However, the guests are really flexible with Uber Eats, and we'll help coordinate kind of delivering those up to their rooms so they feel safe. So I think all the things kind of revolving around just safety, not only for our associates, but for our guests, has been the biggest change. Unfortunately, the lack of business volume has allowed social distancing to naturally happen, and kind of the hotels haven't been so busy where now you're worried about people being right on top of each other. Mm-hmm. I think our staff has done a great job of breaking up shifts so that people feel safe coming to work. But in general, I think as we've all gone, even if you've gone to any kind of a retail experience, we're just not used to folks talking to us with a mask or a clap in front, or unless you're going to a Western Union to get a wire out or something like that, right? It's a different experience. I would say I'm appreciative of our guests actually being really open to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember when Dr. Kim and I first sat down and talked with you, you said something that struck me at the time. You shared how in your business career, you've worked alongside people from like the USCs, the Harvards, the Cornells, and you felt just as qualified and prepared, and sometimes even more prepared than them. So it's like a little internal competition. Like you can show them that, you know, from Fullerton, from Cal State Fullerton, we match up and can compete right with them. Why is that the case? Why does that still resonate with you and give you a sense of pride?
You know, it's as many folks know, the hospitality industry is really filled with folks from Cornell or Michigan State who have, you know, very rightfully so known hospitality programs. Gives me pride in the fact of kind of going to Cal State Fullerton and getting to the same professional growth of those folks. People, you know, I kind of shared with you mine when you were over, like there's a little bit of a chip, right? Because when you go into an industry where it's predominantly the other folks that are around the table or are interviewing, and, you know, you're like, hey, where'd you go to school? And you stick your chest out there and Cal State Fullerton, kind of people for a second would give a, you know, kind of do a double look. So there's a sense of, hey, that, you know, Titans are being represented here and represented well. And, you know, I have another coworker who is a University of Florida graduate. So the two of us would kind of always have this little eye contact, kind of say, hey, we're proud to represent.
Right. I love that. I always remember that. So thanks for sharing that. Yeah, definitely. What skills, because you mentioned social media and kind of those skills that you can practice and use while at home, what other skills do you feel students that are kind of quarantined right now and at home not working can work on improving so that once we kind of get through this, they will be even more marketable? You know,
I think, you know, I wish I could, I'd share a skill. I was trying to think of how, what you could do. You know, analytical skills are slightly forgotten. And that attention to detail, just because we're in this instant gratification where you could do something 75%, and as long as it gets to you like, oh, wow, I would recommend, like, the attention to detail component is really, really lacking and can be improved and kind of integrated into anything that you do. So that work approach of just being analytical would be top on my list. The other things is, I think the art of writing and communicating through notes and letter, like that's another thing that's missing, right? Because again, we're in this world of text is okay, so that short lingo is almost acceptable. But it's amazing during this time of COVID where you can tell someone who really takes the time and writes an email that touches everything. That's impressive. It's rare when you see that, and it reminds me of like how important writing skills are. Is attention to detail there as well.
Good.
So there'll probably be two, and then you know another thing, I am horrible at it, and hence I'm kind of calling myself out, is you can never read enough, right? Like. Reading books, whether it's improving yourself or just reading for the sake of kind of outside of in this, last 3 months, as we all know, Netflix has become everyone's go-to. Like, try to put that down and read a book. Like I said, I wish I could practice that way more than I do myself, and I get called out at home all the time. But I would really encourage reading.
Okay. So a couple of follow-ups that Alex actually asked the same question that I asked you. So thank you, Alex, for your question. Feel free to send another one. I know a certain professor who just released a book in April that, you can add to your list for the summer. So if you want a link, I can send you a link to the Professor Roberts book. But I really agree with you about reading. I think reading is really important.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right about writing. I think in this day and age of texting with emotes and kind of short form text, it kind of gets lost, but it's a really crucial skill because we have to be able to write to communicate to people all over the world.
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%. Jocelyn, what else do you have for us over there?
Okay. What is one of your biggest accomplishments in the industry?
Great question.
Wow. Take a second to think here.
Don't be bashful. Let's, stick our chests out and talk about what we've done.
That's a tough question. Yeah. I think, well, for me, it would be all the all the team members that I managed and where they are in their career would probably be something I'm pretty proud of. All the people who have I have touched, and I can name a ton of them, which no one wants to hear, have moved to careers either with the hotel management company or outside of, Evolution Hospitality, and are doing tremendously well. And, a ton of them, plus, I always keep in touch with. And when you get those kind notes of, hey, I went through something and I remember what I learned and what you taught me, it kind of makes you feel really good of someone really applying it and being vulnerable back then, because as we know, vulnerability is also really tough as we're all trying to enhance our careers. Yeah. So I would put Justin, the folks who I've kind of mentored and allowed them to reach their full potential.
So I know we don't have favorites, but is there one specific person maybe you mentored or helped guide that kind of sticks out? That's like a nice story to share with us.
There's an individual by the name of Donna Winkler. She actually moved to Florida. She was tremendous. If there was a person I would call kind of the right hand person, or many folks refer her as my work wife. She was amazing. Her ability to just listen to direction and take that and make it so much better was remarkable. Yeah, so I would put her very high on my list.
Wonderful. Yeah. When you look at your career, what was maybe the most challenging job that you had, and how did you work your way through that?
So I think the most challenging job I had was we were implementing a new accounting platform, and then which had many stakeholders, from obviously the accounting and finance team to hotel operations. And in our industry, those are kind of looked as polar opposites in so many ways. So to work with the operations team and really deliver a tool that they could use to manage the business, and we in turn could use to make it more efficient of how the numbers get rolled up and reported out, would probably be high on that list, just because it involved a lot of collaboration, meetings, give and take, and along the way we made it better. We did not have it baked 100%. We were like, hey, we're rolling it out and you do as I say. It was really a partnership. So that would be the one.
Okay. Now I have a kind of a companion question from Dr. Kim. She says, students usually think of operations when we imagine jobs in hospitality. Can you explain about the development side a bit more for the students, and what can students do to find jobs that will lead them to work in hotel development?
Sure. So on the development side, I mean, imagine, a piece of land that's, anywhere in the United States, so there's obviously is there, what is it, a location, a B location, what's the competition around there? So now you can kind of see, you're kind of doing market analysis, market intelligence requirement. From there, we kind of see what brand would make sense if it is an opportunity to, if it checks the previous boxes. Once you get the brand, how many rooms does it, what type of hotel is it going to be? Is it going to be more of a limited service, or is it going to have more food and beverage? So you're kind of going through those steps along the way. And then ultimately, after you've nailed all those, and you got to get the financing in place. And then what we call is programming. So it's laying out how many rooms efficiently, what is the ground floor meeting space area look like? How many, offices in the back do you need for staffing? So those are kind of all the hotel operational requirements that go into development. So the developer is asking, in this case, for me, for expertise of, what would you recommend in those previous kind of 2 or 3 things that I mentioned? And then as the building is getting built, now you're out hiring people who are going to be running the hotel eventually. And then there's a whole training that takes place along the way. And then in development, you've got to always be able to pivot a little bit, because what we had envisioned where the restaurant might be actually as the building's coming together, it may make no sense to like move it over a little bit, or the coffee shop might be there. You find these little nooks and crannies to enhance revenues in different ways. So you've got to always have your eyes open to kind of see if there's opportunities like that that you could shoehorn into the property without making it feel like it was shoehorned, obviously. So those would be kind of the sinking of development and hotel operations of how a building comes to life.
When you talk about brands, what can you get the opportunity to work with as many brands as you would like to?
Sure.
What brands and styles of hotels excite you the most as we're looking at the current environment and then looking forward?
Sure. So, in our industry, the profit makers are the hotels, as we call them, as the limited service hotels, right? So there's not much food and beverage. It's really, so some names that may resonate with folks is a Spring Hill Suites or a Residence Inn, right? Those are by far the money makers. But as human beings, we always like challenges. So to answer your question, I think what excites me is the ones that have a little bit more complexity, that have a food and beverage component, whether it's a coffee or a bar component to it, but limited meeting space, not a ton of meeting space. I'm not a huge fan of big conference hotels either. The buzzword kind of pre-COVID was these lifestyle hotels would be what I would describe as kind of other ones I enjoy
Right.
the most, getting my hands in dirty with.
Explain to the audience why the limited service hotels like the Spring Hill Suites or like the extended stay hotels like Residence Inn earn more profit than the bigger full service hotels like a Fullerton Marriott that's right next to campus.
Yeah. The primary reason is the transaction model in those hotels is just so much simpler from a standpoint of you need front desk staff, limited back office staff, and then the cleaning, housekeeping staff really is driven by business volume. In the bigger box, like you mentioned, the Marriott right there at Cal State Fullerton, the minute you have banquets and catering and some of these other components, you obviously need staffing to sell those spaces. There's now a percentage of how much you sell to the person that's selling it, right? So there's just other areas that you constantly have to look on return on effort, where in that previous model, it's really streamlined, where it's simple transactions. The transaction kind of sequencing is very short.
Yeah, excellent. Another question from the audience, and I love this question by Alex. She says hi again. Another question for you. How has networking affected your career?
Yeah, I would say, it's big. If it wasn't for networking, it's the combination of, I wouldn't have had the trajectory in my professional career that I did. And the beauty of our industry also is there's plenty of opportunities for that networking. As simple as we all travel, obviously have to travel for work and for pleasure. The amount of time I will always take the time and effort to say hello to the GM of that visiting hotel. You never know if an opportunity comes up, they're the person we may be hiring or pulling from our competition. I think it also just builds this camaraderie of our industry in general. And then we have other conferences where it's more kind of business banking networking that takes place. And similar there is, that networking circle a little bit more different, but, super valuable. The biased opinion here again is, hospitality professionals are very, very open and welcome anyone to these events. So I would encourage, whenever possible, to participate in those networking events.
For students and young professionals who might be intimidated or scared to network, what are 2 to 3 tips you can share with them to help them become more comfortable and more successful at networking?
My advice would be is, if possible, if you have that fear, go with a friend. Or go with someone who may be in the industry, right? And that's easier said than done, because if you're already nervous, you may not even reach out to someone there, but I think that's part of the beauty of what you've created here at Cal State with the advisory board, right? So I'll put myself out there and say, hey, feel comfortable. If there's an event and you want to come, I have no problem having someone join me, right? So just it prevents you from starting a conversation, will allow someone else to do it. If you have a friend who is a little bit more open to going out, that obviously helps break the ice as well. Would be my two. I think just to go cold turkey and go would probably be the worst thing to do. As welcoming as us hospitality professions are, you do need to engage. So I would encourage probably the first two that I would, from an advice standpoint.
Right. And then I want to kind of bring it back full circle. You talked about kind of the lost art of writing. How important, in your opinion, is follow-up after you network and you meet people? You still there? Let's see. We'll let the kind of bandwidth clear up, and then we'll get you there. And then we have some more questions from the audience. So if you have questions and you're paying attention, ask the questions. You're back with us?
I am. I'm back.
Right. So I was going to say, we're going to bring it back full circle. And you talked about how the lost art of writing is kind of current. How important is follow-up to networking, and what benefits do you see from that?
Lost you again.
Ooh, we got some Wi-Fi issues. Let's see here.
I wonder if that's on my side.
It might be. Does anyone else on Netflix at home watching a movie while we're streaming?
I don't know. You want me to run out real quick and
sure, you can check
that?
Yeah.
All right. Sorry.
Right. So I'll talk to Jocelyn while we wait. So Jocelyn, tell us, when are you graduating, first of all?
Next year, hopefully in spring of 2021.
So step into it. Say, yes, next year I'm graduating in May 2021. If you could pick any job that you could get upon graduating, what job would you pick?
It would probably be something with event planning. I just enjoy going to events and just knowing what's behind the scenes. I really enjoy the planning, the creativity behind that.
What has been the most beneficial kind of thing for you now that we're planning Educate and Elevate, which is happening on July 11th, everyone? What have you learned the most from planning that?
That networking is just everything. Just going back to that, networking really does play a huge difference, especially when you want to do something in the event and you need to go find someone for the video editing.
Yeah. So you're back with us, Bo? You good?
I am. I hope this holds tight. Yeah, there's no one streaming.
Okay, good. We'll go for it. No problems. I was just asking the question in terms of writing. You spoke about writing, how writing is a lost art, but how important is follow-up to networking?
Sorry, Abani, I missed that last part. How
is follow-up to networking? Like following up with thank you notes or things like that.
Broke out again a little bit.
Okay. Let's see here.
That's strange because my Wi-Fi shows full.
That's good. Well, tell us how important follow-up is to networking. And then we'll put up another question on the board here. So we have Isla. What's up, Isla? She asks, what is the most rewarding part of your job?
I think currently right now, the most rewarding part would be when we open a hotel. It's always exciting. The energy that you get from all the folks that have participating and having that come to life is rewarding. You see the fruits of everyone's hard work, and when that first guest checks in, you kind of feel this big feeling of relief and excitement at the same time.
Is there a particular hotel that you opened up that is memorable, a memorable opening?
I think the one, this goes back a little bit, but it was our first full service hotel that we did up in San Francisco, primarily because it was our first full service hotel. And the team that was involved in getting that open was pretty remarkable. So that's that would be my most memorable.
Okay. Jocelyn, what other questions do you have for us?
What motivation would you give to students who are looking to work in the hospitality industry?
If I heard you, Jocelyn, I apologize.
It's
and
okay.
I can find it. I think it was what motivation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Correct.
What motivation would? That's a toughie. I think it's just always trying to make it better than it was would be kind of the thing that keeps me going. If I heard the part of your question of what motivates is, it's an industry that constantly reinvents itself. So staying ahead of that is pretty motivating.
When you look at the future of the industry, hospitality, what trends are you currently observing in the future of hospitality and hotels specifically?
I think there's, pre-COVID, and I keep referring to that. I think we were at this crossroads or a feeling of kind of what the millennials want and what kind of traditional travelers want. I would say that that's always going to be there. At the same time, I think hospitality is one where the human connection and the conversational piece would never go away. It's just how can you make that quickly and to the point and not so dragged out as it has been in our industry, because it is still pretty archaic in just our check-in and a credit card requirement and like all of those things. Like you almost feel like you're going through customs to board a flight, or going through customs into a different country. Like that is one area where I still feel that we are ways behind than the retail world, where it's as quickly as a scan or a Apple Pay or whatever it might be. We're pretty archaic in that area.
Yeah, I agree. If we're looking at some sort of recovery post-COVID, based on your experience, analysis that you've seen, what do you anticipate in terms of a recovery time where we might get back to, pre-COVID levels will be very challenging to get to, but get back to a more profitable level for hotels?
Sure. So, the pundits have kind of said that, we're probably, 2022 would be, call it pre-COVID level. So we're talking about, a good year and a half here still. I don't want to sound so dire here, but, a vaccine would catapult that tremendously, as we all know, right? And not just our industry, everything else. So outside of that, we just have to get folks comfortable, getting in a plane and having meetings and traveling again. That goes back to it's, there's a big question like, come on, vaccine, come quickly. Outside of that, I think we've got a little bit of headwinds we're going to have to deal with.
Yeah. When you think back to your time at Cal State Fullerton, what are some of the ways that, going to school here and graduating from here prepared you to be successful in the industry?
I appreciate, as much as folks, being would say it's a commuter college. I really like the diversity and the fact that you did get to meet a ton of different people in all different professions, or, seeking different professions. So that, for me, that allowed, like, for a networking event, it never bothered me, just because like going to college was like networking. You didn't always see the same people. You were literally forced to kind of interact with individuals that you may see in one class and never again till your senior year. So I would say that environment really helped me. And then I had great professors, right? So the education would probably be the second piece.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that we talk about a lot in EHM is being resilient and kind of getting through your fears. What is kind of currently are some of your fears? And then how are you being resilient, growing your resiliency muscle to get through those fears?
Yes, I think, and for me, the industry, the toughest part being is seeing great people either getting furloughed or let go. March, April were mentally challenging times. Folks you've known for a while, it was just hard to get through those things. So, the fear of the unknown, I would say, has been top of my list. And I think the part about anything unknown is you just have to continuously read and educate yourself. Never take what someone's telling you at face value would be how I've gotten through it, because we are in a world right now where the outside voice is louder than your own, and you just need to control your own voice and your own thoughts.
Yes. Jocelyn, we got about 3 or 4 minutes left. What is maybe one of your final questions for Bo?
What was your experience like going into the industry?
I had zero experience outside of an accounting degree, Justin. So my first 6 to 9 months, I did kind of part-time jobs as night audit, front office, banquets, just to understand how the industry worked. Because I'm also a big believer that if you're going to be at a corporate level or managing people, your credibility just gets catapulted when you've walked in other people's shoes. The age-old saying, but it's super valuable, because if you want someone to think differently and behave differently, it's a lot easier when you've been there yourself. So that was probably me just being assertive of learning those different jobs, so that when I was managing folks in those roles, the credibility component was just so much more.
Now, before we kind of close out, what's the best way for people to reach you if they want to continue the conversation? We have your LinkedIn kind of link here on the ticker. Any other ways people can reach you?
Bo at T2 Hospitality is great. Email. Be a huge fan of that. Little easy, and I know folks who've been on the advisory, I'm pretty quick at responding. And I have no problem giving my cell number, which is 949-394-8990. So either one works.
There you go. So you can rewind the live stream and write that cell phone number down. We're excited to have you join us again on July 11th for Educate and Elevate. And maybe just kind of leave us with any last minute, I love to get like words of wisdoms. Or here's the question that my students know I love to ask. If you could go back and talk to 21-year-old Bo, based on what you know now, what advice would you give your younger self?
What the advice I would give is try everything and don't narrow yourself into one thing. If you have the chance, try everything. I tell that to my kids all the time, right? Experience is your best friend, and then through those experiences, you will find your passion and your calling.
Excellent advice. Well, experience is very valuable. We agree. So thank you very much, Bo, for appearing on Industry Insider. We're so happy and thankful for your commitment to the advisory board. We'll see you next week. And well done, Jocelyn. Nice job. Your first Industry Insider. How do you feel? You feel good?
Yeah, I thought I was nervous beforehand.
It's good. It's not so bad. Yes, you did tremendous. Well done. We'll end off with a video that will highlight our upcoming guests next week. Everyone have a safe and enjoyable 4th of July weekend, or Canada Day if you just previously celebrated that yesterday. Stay safe. We'll see you next week. And here's our upcoming guest for next week.
Take care, Jocelyn.
Next week's guest is Tara Stengel. Tara is currently the head of lodging supply at TripActions. TripActions is the leading platform that combines industry-leading technology and best-in-class travel agency service. They are trusted by over 4,000 companies globally to protect traveling employees while controlling costs and saving money to drive business continuity. In addition, Tara has years of hospitality and travel experience working with companies such as Hotwire, Expedia, and Kimpton Hotels. Please join us next Friday as we chat with Tara Stengel.